do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. So much stuff to get to today. Lamar Wilkerson has officially committed to play basketball at Indiana this next season. Darian DeVries grabbing a guy that was very much coveted in the transfer portal. Hopefully going to get his high school basketball coach on here shortly. I'm hoping he calls me. We'll see. But anyway, so we're going to talk about him. There's a linebacker named Carson Schwesinger who I keep seeing mocked to the Colts in the second round. I've got thoughts on him. We're going to have Kevin Potts on at 11 to discuss Carson and kind of what all he brings to the table. But we're going to start with Indiana basketball because it is basketball season. And I already love Coach DeVries. Love this guy already. Every person, every transfer that he's bringing in, the high school recruit that he's bringing in, every single one of them can shoot the basketball. And that's really all that I care about. If you've heard me talk about college basketball or the NBA or really any sort of basketball at all, I love shooting. I think it is the single most important thing that you have to have on your team. I don't know if you watched the Warriors and the Grizzlies last night, but the reason why the Grizzlies had a chance to win that game despite turning the basketball over 20 times is because they shot 46% from three. When you look around, give me one sec. Hey, is this Eric?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man? You were live on the air. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing good for my audience. This is Eric Cross, who had the privilege to coach Lamar Wilkerson at Ashdown High School, way down there in Arkansas, and I'm really pumped to have you on. So I'm kind of curious that when you watch Lamar Wilkerson play basketball, what is the first thing that kind of pops out about his game?
I mean, I think the easy thing for anybody to see would be the three-point shooting. I mean, he shot at like 45% from three this year. And it's, kind of crazy to see him do that in college because in high school, he'll even tell you he wasn't that level of three-point shooter, but that just kind of tells you his work ethic and how hard he's worked, over the last several years to improve that part of his game. But, I mean, what always stuck out to me, though, is just how unselfish he is. And that may be what kind of gets lost in it because he can score the ball so well. But, man, he's such an unselfish player, a team-first guy.
So when he was playing for you back in high school, what was the skill then that got him recruited to play college ball?
Yeah, so I do want to clarify that I definitely was not his head coach. I was like the low man on the totem pole assistant coach, but I was a part of the staff. So, man, he went to Three Rivers Junior College out of high school. And I think his athleticism, his length, his ability to score the ball, defend, he was a really, really good, maybe one of the best defenders in the state in high school. So it was kind of the total package. I think all those intangibles got him recruited.
Joined by Eric Cross, who helped coach Lamar Wilkerson, new Indiana commit way back when he was in high school. How competitive is he? Because that's something that, like when you watch, the better players, they always seem to have a little bit of an edge to them. Does he have that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why he's at where he's at right now. Like I said, coming out of Ashdown was a 3A Arkansas high school, really small, going junior college, then going, mid-major D1 all the way to, Indiana, who's got one of the richest traditions in basketball. It's all because of that competitiveness. He wants to be the best. He wants to beat everybody in front of him, and he works nonstop to be able to give himself a chance.
Hey, we love that here. And I'm really kind of curious, what is his personality like? Because, like, to play basketball at Indiana, you got to deal with a lot of crazy people. And so, I guess, what about his personality do you think is going to allow him to kind of deal with all the craziness of playing basketball at IU?
I think his sense of humor is going to come in really handy in that, that type of environment where, man, he's just like a really good person. He's goofy. He likes to have fun. He's got great energy all the time. Like it's pretty hard to find him in a bad mood. I don't think there's much that rattles him. So, me and him have even talked about the last few days just how crazy social media is and stuff. And he just laughs all that stuff off and keeps going. So none of it bothers him.
That's important because, like I said, IU fans are nuts. I'm kind of curious. Will people be able to tell that he's from Arkansas like immediately? Like, does he hunt? Does he fish? Does he have that accent that kind of gives it away?
Man, I have never known him to be like an outdoors person. I'm not sure if he hunts or fishes. Man, I really couldn't even tell you if he hunts or fishes. But I don't know. Maybe maybe the way he talks, you might be able to tell. He's definitely a small town kid, though. He's not. You're not going to see him running around being flashy and all that kind of stuff.
That's great. We like I said, like we've had some problems isn't the right word, but I do think that Indiana fans during the Mike Woodson era kind of got a little tired of some of the players who were a little flashier, to put it lightly. Joined by Eric Cross, who got to coach Lamar Wilkerson, newest Indiana commit when he was still playing ball in high school. Would you say that? Does Lamar have the skills to lead? Because it seems like from what I've seen, he's going to play point guard or at least bring the ball up. And that's for me. Like if I was coaching, I would want that guy to be my leader. Does he have that? Does he have the leadership skills to do that?
No, I absolutely think he does. Just his ability to be vocal, like he doesn't mind kind of being that guy that's out in front and being vocal, but he's still a team player in it. And I think people respect when one of your better players is your hardest worker and is a great teammate. I think that's an easy person to follow. And so that's who he'll be, and I just think he'll be an easy guy for his teammates to get behind and to follow from day one. And like I said, with his kind of energy and just his energy is contagious when he plays, at practice every day. He's always going to keep things, kind of fun and exciting and keep the energy up. And he just loves the everyday grind of it. So, I think he'll be an easy guy to follow from day one when he steps on campus.
What was your favorite thing about coaching him?
I think my favorite thing about coaching him was just the unselfishness. Is, a guy that talented could have, taken 40 shots a game and, probably broken records or whatever he wanted to do. He was so talented. But, his junior year, he was on the state championship team, and I bet he maybe averaged 14, 15 points a game. And obviously he could have averaged more, but he really bought into just playing team ball. And Coach Smith ran a really good motion offense that required the ball to move and screens to be set. And Lamar never had any, selfishness in that he would go set a screen, he would cut, he would pass the ball, do everything you're asking him to do. So that was really my favorite thing of just watching him is just seeing how great of a team player he was.
So he can play off the ball.
Oh yeah. He can play pretty much anywhere you want him to. And he's, pretty big guy at this point. I think he's about 6'5". I think maybe they have him listed at 205. To me, he looks bigger than 205. But he can handle the ball. He can get off the ball. He can do whatever you need him to do.
Joined by Eric Cross, who got to coach Lamar Wilkerson, newest Indiana commit when he was playing ball at good old Ashdown, Arkansas. And last thing for you, would you when you watch him play? I don't really know how to perfectly articulate what I'm asking here. I think my favorite thing that you said about him is how unselfish he is. So he very much sounds like a wins over stats guy. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, he kind of said it in his interview yesterday that I saw, that he's going to Indiana too for the challenge and the chance to kind of elevate a program. And so, not only is he a great team player, but I think he just really, he's always had that chip on his shoulder. Like I said, going from a small high school to the junior college route, and just his whole journey. He's just always kept that chip on his shoulder, and I think that's really what drives him. And so I think, he's going to want to win. He's only got, he said it to me yesterday. He's only got 9 months, to get this thing right. So, he knows he's got to get it done quick, and he wants to go in there and he wants to win. And so, Coach DeVries obviously is a great coach and probably one of the better coaches in the country. And so Lamar trusts him, and he'll do whatever coach asks him to do to try to have the best season they can this coming year.
What's a fair expectation for him going into, like you said, he's got 9 months, but as you said, he played JUCO and at Houston State as well. What do you think is a fair expectation for fans and coaches to have for him during his first year at like a Power 5 level school?
Well, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but I think, I don't know if fair is even the right word, but to me the expectations for him are probably really high. I know he has really high expectations for himself. I could easily see him averaging 17, 18, maybe 20 again, and I think he'll continue to shoot the ball at a high percentage. He shot at 45% from three last year, so I don't know if you can get much better. I know he said yesterday on the interview he wants to shoot 50% next year. I could see him doing that. Pretty much anything he wants to put his mind to, I could definitely see it happening. So I think you'll see a guy that puts it in the basket a lot next year. He's going to shoot it at a high rate. He's going to be super efficient, and he'll be one of the best defenders in that conference. He takes a lot of pride in defense, and he is going to guard, and he's going to love every second of it, and he's going to want to guard the best player, and that's just kind of how he is.
Oh, I love that. I'm super pumped now because I think from like a fan's perspective, like you see he's a 45% 3-point shooter last year, and you just think offense. But I love hearing you say that he really wants to guard. Has that always kind of been a trait of his?
I think so. I think he kind of first developed that. I mentioned him before. His high school coach, the head coach, Coach Smith, he was a defensive guy. And so he really stressed that. And so Lamar played for him his whole high school career. And so that was something that was really kind of pushed on all those guys. And Lamar just took it head on. And he was like, I want to guard the best player every game. And like I said, to me, he became one of the best defenders in the state of Arkansas his junior and senior year. And so I think you're going to see that continue, and nobody's going to work harder than him. And it's easy to go in the gym and get up shots. I think everybody wants to do that, but that Lamar is going to work on the defensive end as well. And so, I think, maybe not early in the season. I don't know. He may struggle early in the season on defense maybe, but I think by the time conference rolls around and in crunch time, you're going to see one of the best defenders on the floor is going to be Lamar.
Dude, that's awesome. Eric, thanks for taking like 10 minutes to brief us on your guy. We're all rooting for him. I hope he's averaging like 25 and 7. I'm super pumped, man. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on.
That is Eric Cross. He had the great pleasure of getting to coach Lamar Wilkerson, newest Indiana basketball commits, coming up from Sam Houston State, a guy who got looks from Kentucky, and that tells you all you need to know, because Kentucky is all about talent, and it's a big recruiting win. Maybe we'll see for Coach DeVries in his first year, and everything that Eric said there, I think, is what we want from Indiana basketball. Like this Lamar Wilkerson kid sounds like he's going to guard, sounds like he's going to work hard, he can shoot it, and I'm really excited to see what he looks like, because he's being thrown into this lineup with all these dudes who can just shoot the rock, man. Shooting around. It seems like every guy that Coach DeVries is bringing in shot at least 40% from three last year. And now you've got a big guard, as Eric said right there. He's like 6'5", 205. Like, that's a big guard. And most importantly, like, he wants to play defense. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. He played in a motion offense going back to high school. I'm sure the ball's going to be in his hands a lot because he shoots it so well, and he is a legitimate guard. So really excited. Lamar Wilkerson is your newest Hoosier. And do you see the trend? I'm telling you, shooting, it is so important. Like, when you looked at all those Final Four teams, all four of them could really shoot the ball. Auburn, Florida, Houston, Duke, all four of them If they were open and they had, a 3-point look, you felt like it was going to go in. And Coach DeVries is replicating a lot of that. They're bringing in these guys who can really shoot the basketball, and hopefully this Wilkerson kid winds up being the tip of the spear. He was clearly important to Coach DeVries because apparently Coach DeVries flew out to Arkansas, Ashdown, the middle of nowhere. Okay? Like you drive through Ashdown and you don't realize that you've driven through it. And he flies out to meet with them. And that tells me that like this kid's really important. From everything that, Coach Cross just said, seems like this Lamar kid is an absolute dream to coach. Hopefully it continues to be that way. Hopefully this kid continues to work his butt off. Hopefully he continues to shoot 45% from three, because that is a really nice weapon to have on your team. Speaking of weapons, there's offensive weapons in the NFL, and there's also defensive weapons in the NFL. The Colts don't have very many defensive weapons. They're going to be looking to add some in the NFL draft. Carson Schwesinger. I see him on all these mocks. He's going to probably be drafted by the Colts. That is how it appears, at least. He's a linebacker at UCLA, but I'm not convinced that this is the guy that the Colts want to take in the second round. I'm not convinced that it's going to work out in the NFL. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. The Fort Wayne Mad Ants are no more. They are moving to Noblesville, where they will be known as the Noblesville Boom, in honor of the Boom Baby call. So there you go. There's your daily NBA G League news. Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Big thanks to Eric Cross joining me in that last segment to talk about Lamar Wilkerson, kind of his journey to Indiana, a JUCO kid who played at a small D1, and now he's going to get to play basketball for Indiana. That's amazing. That's awesome. So big thanks to Eric. Really spoke highly of the new Indiana basketball player. Now, a lot of newness because we got the NFL draft, a little over a week away, 8 days away to be exact. And Carson Schwesinger is this linebacker at UCLA. And I keep seeing him mocked to the Colts in the second round. I feel like I've seen it, like 4 or 5 times here in the last couple of days. And I hope all of these mock drafts are incorrect. I do not want for this guy to be a Colt. With that being said, he is projected to be a second-round pick. So there's clearly something to like about him. Here is his background. He's a redshirt junior who was unranked as a high school prospect. He walked on to UCLA's football team as a freshman. And, his first, couple seasons, he played in 26 games over his first 3 seasons. He had 27 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 1 sack. Played really sparingly. Didn't really seem like UCLA was in a rush to put that guy on the field, and UCLA was bad those first 3 years that he was there. And then we get this last season where he earns a starting role, where, he makes the most of it. 136 tackles, 8.5 for loss, 4 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, forced a fumble. He was first team All Big Ten. He was a first team All-American. Was also a finalist for the Butkus Award, which goes to the best linebacker in college football. And let's go glass half full. Let's say I'm wrong. Let's say that Carson Schwesinger winds up being a really good NFL player. I think he'd be a good fit alongside Zaire Franklin. Seems like a pretty instinctive player, plays downhill, gets downhill fast. Seems like he's pretty quick. Seems like laterally he can change direction pretty well, which is important because linebackers do have to cover. So he seems to kind of process plays quickly. He slides through blocks pretty well. He's a good tackler. That's my favorite thing about him. He had just a 7.6% missed tackle rate per PFF. Never quits on a play. He's got some like Latu stuff to him in terms of the motor and the ability to just kind of keep it going, right? Just full tilt all the time. He covers well. And this is why I think he would fit well alongside Zaire Franklin. This Carson Schwesinger kid just moves well in space. He's decently fast. Okay, so he can run with tight ends and receivers and all of those things. And that is the biggest draw for him in terms of him playing in this Colts defense, because Zaire Franklin, Pro Bowler Zaire Franklin, he's not very good in coverage. And the Colts need a linebacker who can at least cover a little bit, because EJ Speed couldn't cover. He couldn't. Zaire Franklin, not great in coverage. And it seems like this Carson Schwesinger kid is going to be able to do that. We're going to have Kevin Potts on the show coming up at 11 o'clock, and he'll be able to tell us more about him. But he's quick. He can cover. He doesn't miss very many tackles. And with all that being said, like, as much good as there is a reason why I don't like the idea of taking him in the second round. One, he hasn't played much. And we're in this era of college football where you can find guys that have produced over 4 years. And you've got, 48 or 50 games worth of tape to be able to go back and watch them play. And with this Schwesinger kid, like maybe he just had the best year of his life. I struggle to take a guy with, a top 50 pick that doesn't have much production outside of one season. I mean, the Colts took Anthony Richardson after seeing him play for 1 year. And that hasn't gone very well so far. This guy was also a walk-on. One good season on a really bad team. Before this year, he played pretty sparingly, which tells me that he's not some super talent. That's the thing. Like, talented kids on bad teams usually play early. And he didn't. And so I'm not convinced that he's going to be some super talented kid. And if you're spending a second round pick on a guy, like I'd like to think that there's a super high ceiling for them. And I'm just not convinced that this Carson Schwesinger player has that. The other thing I don't like about him is he's small. This is really my biggest qualm. He's small. He's not very strong. Only put up 20 reps on the bench press at the combine. And I say only 20. And I know that people were like, oh, well, you couldn't bench 225 20 times. You never see me at the gym. That's all I'm going to say. And also, like, that number is in the 47th percentile for linebackers. Like that's below average. He's listed at 6'3", 242, but there's no way. There is no way that that's accurate. He looks like a safety. He looks so incredibly slight. He looks like he weighs 210 pounds. That dude's tiny. Okay? He's got a slight frame. That's not what you want in your NFL linebacker. Think about the best linebackers you've ever seen. Think about the best linebackers in the NFL right now. Fred Warner is not slight. Roquan Smith, not slight. Patrick Queen, not slight. Those guys are big. Brian Urlacher was big. Ray Lewis was big. Okay, like the best linebackers in the NFL are all thick. This guy isn't. His arms are also short, and that's important. Okay, so his lack of size and arm length and strength hinders your ability to get off blocks. He can get swallowed up by blockers. And I get it. Dude's a great tackler. He can cover. He can get downhill and stuff the run. And like he does a lot of good things. But if you can't get off blocks, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I can be the best tackler in the world. I could go to a genie, rub the lamp, have, the male or female genie pop out, and you get 3 wishes. And let's say, I'm like, hey, I wish that I would never miss a tackle ever again. And that would be great. And I'm sure that, I would go play in the NFL. And I would record like 7 tackles because I just wouldn't be able to get off blocks. That is what football is at its core. Teams that block the best and get off blocks the best tend to have a pretty good chance to score and get stops. And if you have a linebacker who struggles to get off blocks playing in the Big Ten, then, I mean, you really think he's going to get off blocks in the NFL? When you got guys like Quentin Nelson or Laramie Tunsil or Terran Armstead bearing down on you? Good luck doing that at, 6'3", 242. There's no way that guy is 242. Go look up any photo of Carson Schwesinger, and you're going to look at that dude and be like, yeah, that guy is not 242 pounds. Absolutely no way. I'm going to have Kevin Potts on the show coming up in about 30 minutes, and he does a really good job covering the NFL draft. And I'm going to ask him about this guy because I'm just not convinced that this dude's 242 pounds. I mean, his arms are skinnier than mine. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like he doesn't look like an NFL linebacker. And maybe I'm getting too caught up in the looks because I do think that the way that something looks is important. Like I think that most of the time, not all the time, if you have like a basketball team that passes the airport test, then chances are they're going to be a little bit better than a basketball team that doesn't. That's not always true, but hey, who knows? Who knows? Something that I do know is that I love good barbecue. I love barbecue. And Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. It is the place in Indianapolis to get real, awesome, amazing barbecue. And right now, we've got a sweet deal for you when it comes to Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. You can get $50 in gift certificates for only $25 at indiesportsticket.com. You can go double your money. Imagine spending $25 on like a gift card, and instead they're like, you know what? We like you, so we're going to give you 50. That's what you could do right now. indiesportsticket.com if you want to head over there and purchase one of those. Their food's amazing. No, I mean it's awesome. Love their food. Okay. They brought some in last week. It was gone in like a minute because people saw it. It looked awesome. They tasted it and they're like, yeah, that's good. Let me grab even more wings. And then boom, they're all gone. That's just the way that it goes. When it comes to Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue, it's a great deal. Make sure you head over to indiesportsticket.com to purchase some of those gift certificates. That was, love that place. Anyway, Hawks lost to the Magic last night in our first play-in game. The Warriors beat the Grizzlies in what was an amazing game. It was awesome. Had an absolute blast watching that game. So the Magic are now going to play the Celtics in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and the Warriors are going to take on the Houston Rockets. We've got other playing games going on tonight as well. The Miami Heat, they're playing against the Chicago Bulls. You got, Heat culture playing against the Bulls team that's playing really well right now. And then we've got maybe the worst playing game ever. We got the beat up Mavericks taking on the DeMar DeRozan-led Sacramento Kings. That game is really late tonight. But when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I will get into my thoughts on the play-in games, what we have in store for the playoffs in those 2-7 matchups, because I think they're going to be a little bit more interesting than what people realize. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
fits in today's sports world. It's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully you've had a nice start to your week. It's Wednesday, and we had a couple teams get over the hump last night and make it officially into the NBA playoffs.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Hump day!
No, as a coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Mike Woodson, could just never quite get the Hoosiers over the hump during his 4 years as the head coach. 0 Sweet 16s in 4 years, only made the NCAA tournament twice. Now Coach DeVries is here, and hopefully he can, restore Indiana basketball to what it was. But last night, because, look, we're keeping over the hump day around for as long as possible because that sounder is just way too good to get rid of. It just is. So Hawks Magic, saw the Magic get over the hump last night and officially make it into the NBA playoffs. And just last night was just a reminder of how deep the NBA is. Okay, because they got two guys coming in off the bench doing major work. Paolo Banchero struggles a little bit, starts 1 of 7 from the field, went 3 of 6 in the second half, but, just really struggled to make shots because the Hawks have done a good job of bringing in some dudes who can, guard a little bit. Okay, but, he ends up scoring 9 points in the first half, finishes the game with 17, 11 of his 17 points coming from the foul line. And then, you watch this Magic team, and look, they're not going to beat Boston. I think they're going to give Boston so many fits just because of how elite they are on the defensive side of the ball. Boston loves to hunt matchups, and that's really hard to do against the Magic because they're all tall, they're all long, and they can all really defend. I mean, you got Franz Wagner, 6'9" guy, guarding Trae Young, a point guard, and he gave Trae Young all sorts of fits. Trae Young ends up getting ejected. He threw a little hissy fit at the end of the game, winds up getting tossed, but just an absolute blast. Watching that game, watching the defense that was played last night by the Orlando Magic. They've done that all year. It's one of my least favorite things when people say the teams in the NBA don't play defense, because then it's just like, you clearly haven't watched the Magic or the Thunder or a lot of the other good defensive teams in the NBA. Okay, and Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero stir the drink for the Orlando Magic. But they struggled last night. Like, Franz Wagner didn't score it great, but play good defense, grabbed a game-high 13 rebounds. But the Magic got some much-needed production off their bench in the forms of Cole Anthony and Anthony Black. Cole Anthony went crazy in the third quarter. He finished with 26 points. He hit 4 threes in 20 minutes off the bench. He was plus 32. Anthony Black, he had 16 points. He hit 3 threes. He was a game-high plus 38 when he was on the floor, and that was in part because of the way that he defended Trae Young when Franz wasn't guarding him. It was Anthony Black. And the Trae Young ejection is just my favorite thing because I'm not a Trae Young fan. He can't really play defense, and it's a lack of size thing. It used to be a lack of effort thing. Now I think it's more of just a lack of size. He couldn't score it last night. Sure, he had 28, but he was only 8 of 21 from the field, and he finished at minus 22, and it's that Magic size and length. It's problematic for everyone that plays against the Magic, but it's especially problematic for small guards like Trae Young. Okay, and I don't care how good of a player you are. Anytime you're being defended by someone who's bigger than you and has the ability to stay in front of you, like you're going to struggle a little bit more than normal. And Trae Young struggled. He had a nice little stretch in the third quarter where he had a few floaters, but that was really it. His night ended in an ejection, and that size and length and defensive ability from the Magic is going to give the Celtics some issues, but they just don't have the offense to win that series against a team like Boston, who is going to find a way to score because they're the Boston Celtics, and they're one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. When you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum leading the way for you, you're going to find a way to score, even against the best defenses in the NBA. The other playing game that we had last night was between the Grizzlies and the Warriors. Desmond Bane, from this great state of Indiana, was amazing. He was their best offensive player. He led what was a near perfect offensive performance from the Grizzlies, right? He shouldered the load, especially when John Morant tweaked his ankle and missed a little bit of time there. He led the Grizzlies in scoring with 30. He was 5 of 8 from 3. This Grizzlies team as a whole was 12 of 26 from 3. That's 46%. The Warriors only shot 34% from 3. John Morant, he had 22 points, made half of his shots, didn't see him throw any grenades last night. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 18 points. He was 4 of 9 from 3. Former lottery pick, Zach Edey, he was very impactful. 14 points, 17 rebounds. Santi Aldama off the bench had 14 for the Grizzlies. Like, they had an amazing offensive game. Okay, they grabbed 16 offensive rebounds, shot 46% from 3. And when you make threes and you dominate the glass the way that the Grizzlies did last night, you should win. You should. They outshot the Warriors percentage-wise. They out-rebounded the Warriors by 11. But they turned the basketball over 20 times. And if you stayed up late to watch that game, then you know that the game ended on a 5-second violation. And, I mean, come on. Like, it was terrible. It felt a little bit like the it felt a little bit like the Houston game in, the national title. Like, the Warriors are going to have the Grizzlies are going to have a great opportunity to, tie the game, send it to overtime. And they wind up committing a 5-second violation, and they don't even, they don't even get a shot up. It's kind of crazy. Like you don't see NBA teams do that very often, but it fully encapsulated what that game was last night. The Warriors stayed tight to their assignments, and they forced another turnover. They did it for the full 48 minutes, and it's why they won that game. If you turn the basketball over 20 times in the NBA or college basketball or high school basketball, chances are you're going to lose. And the Warriors, they scored 27 points off those Grizzly turnovers. That's why the Grizzlies lost. That and Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler were awesome. Steph Curry hit every big shot late, scored the final 10 points for the Warriors. He hit 2 big threes. He hit, 4 big free throws late. He's still got it in every way. He's still got the juice. He finished last night with 37 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was 6 of 13 from 3. I mean, he was just full-blown Steph Curry last night. He was. And none of that happens, though, without Jimmy Butler, because playoff Jimmy is still a thing. He had 21 points at half, 4 assists as well. He finished the game with 38 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists and 3 steals. He got to the rim whenever he wanted, posted up smaller defenders, went by bigger defenders. When he got to the rim, he got fouled. He took 18 free throws. He made life easier on Steph, and that's why you make that trade, right? It's to bring in a guy who can, not only help Steph when Steph Curry's on the floor, because he generated so many easy looks for Steph, but he also is able to run the offense and put a good offensive product out on the floor when Steph Curry's on the bench. He can also defend. Okay, I thought he did a pretty decent job guarding last night as well. And so he made life easier on Steph, they were able to take Steph out and still maintain a lead, and it was just really impressive. They're good enough to win the whole thing. They won't, but they're definitely good enough to. Though I think they'll beat the Rockets in 6 games. I think people are going to look at this matchup and talk about the experience and Steph and all that kind of stuff, but this is actually going to be a really tough series for the Golden State Warriors. Sure, the Rockets don't have experience outside of Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams. The Warriors have a ton of it. But if you had to build a team to slow down this Warriors offense, they would look something like the Rockets. More specifically, if you had to build a team or a player to defend Steph Curry, it would look like Amen Thompson. He's going to defend Curry. He's going to follow him and chase him, and he is athletic enough to do that. Steph Curry's really struggled against the Rockets this year, only averaging 16 points a game on 36% shooting from the field. So while I do think that the Warriors are going to win the series, it's going to be close. It's going to be. I think every game is going to come down to the wire, but the Warriors' experience and offensive prowess will allow them to win these close games late because, when you're running your offense through Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green, I just don't feel as good about you as when you're running your late game offense through Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. So that series is going to be awesome, though. Can't wait to watch the Warriors and the Rockets play in that series. We have other games going on tonight. Teams fighting to keep their seasons alive. The Heat are going to play the Bulls. I know that people revere Eric Spoelstra for his coaching job at the Heat, but they are once again in the playing game, and they are not better than the Bulls. Bulls are rolling. And it's because addition by subtraction is a real thing. They got rid of Zach LaVine, and now they're winning all these games. They got rid of him, and their offensive rating went from 20th in the league to 14th. Their defensive rating went from 19th to 10th. Their net rating went from 20th to 10th. Really impressive. They went from being the 20th best team in the league to the 10th best team in the league, all because they got rid of their leading scorer. Zach LaVine's a 21-point-per-game guy, for his career. He's averaging 23.5 this year, shooting 44% from 3. He is an incredibly efficient shooter. Okay, he can score one-on-one. I know everyone knows him for the dunk contest. He's a good statistical player, but he's not a winning player. And I know that because as soon as the Bulls got rid of him, they started winning. The ball started to move a little bit more. Josh Giddey emerged into like a real, legitimate guy. Kobe White's numbers got better. Montes Bazelis started playing better. Players that put up good numbers aren't always winning players. It's the simple reality of it. We're going to see Zach LaVine play tonight as well, and you're going to see everything I'm talking about. He doesn't defend with intensity. Okay, he's selfish, doesn't move the ball a ton. And the Bulls got rid of him. They're better for it. The Heat, they can't say the same. They got rid of Jimmy Butler, and they're still a playing team. That's probably going to lose tonight. Tyler Hero, first-time All-Star this year. He had a good year. Bam Adebayo, still an elite defender. Khalil Ware, going to get some votes for Rookie of the Year. But they just don't have a real guy. That's their issue. When you have Jimmy Butler, you have a guy that, you can go to and he can go score. We saw it last night with the Warriors. But they just don't have the offensive punch that you need to be a top 6 seed in the NBA in either conference. Like, they're still going to defend and make things tough on the Bulls tonight. But I just don't think that they have the talent to beat the Bulls, which is kind of sad because the Bulls aren't super talented either. When Andrew Wiggins and Tyler Hero are your 2 best offensive players, you just don't have enough. Having the 19th best offense in the NBA like they have this year isn't going to cut it no matter how good your culture is. Last game of the night, the Mavericks are playing the Kings. The Kings are going to win this game because I think the Mavericks are done. They just had the season from hell. They're tired of putting up with this crap. They're playing in Sacramento. They don't want to be there. Anthony Davis is ready to start stealing from the Mavericks the same way that he stole from the Pelicans before he got traded. The Kings, however, love the play-in. This might as well, the play-in tournament should be known as the DeMar DeRozan Invitational because he's in it every year. Domantas Sabonis, that's a tough dude. I think he's going to eat Anthony Davis alive for 2 hours tonight. The Mavericks are going to roll over. They are the definition of Cancun on 3. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Like, that's who the Mavericks are tonight. I don't know what the line is. I don't care what the line is. I'm going to bet the Kings because the Mavericks just seem like they're ready to be done with the season. That's what it seems like watching that team play. There's not a ton of energy. There's not a ton of effort. Klay Thompson looks like he's ready to be done. He's like, man, like, I came here to play with Luka. And, he did a little bit, just not for very long. So, like the Mavericks are 4.5-point dogs. And take the Kings 1,000,000% there. Bulls, they're favored by 1. I like them as well. But this is the cool thing about the play-in, right? It's one game, especially these. Like both of these games are win or go home. And when that happens, some guys rise to the occasion, other guys falter. It's part of why we really enjoy watching, March Madness every single year. And the games tonight, I don't expect for any Dallas Mavericks player to rise to the occasion because they just seem like they're done. Their, general manager's an idiot. The new ownership doesn't really seem to care about the team, and that is just a really tough environment to be in, especially when, the entire fan base isn't super happy with your franchise right now. That and you got to go play in Sacramento. It's a tough break. When we come back here when we come back here at 11 o'clock, we're going to have Kevin Potts join the show. He's got, he's just our guy at this point for any and everything that is NFL draft related. Okay. He does an excellent job covering the draft every single year. He writes hundreds of pieces on every single player that is going to be available over, starting on Thursday, heading through that weekend. So he's the guy to talk to. He's going to join the show at 11. We're going to talk about some different mocks that I've seen. We're going to talk about these quarterbacks again because we just keep seeing them move up and up and up the board and all that good stuff. It's going to be a good time. Kevin Potts joins the show at 11.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it trying.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Joined by Kevin Potts to talk about the NFL draft. We are 8 days away, and with the Pacers playing on Saturday, we got basketball stuff lined up for tomorrow and Friday. So I had to get Kevin on today. Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. Like you said, about a week out here, just putting on some finishing touches on this draft class, and excited to see where all these guys end up landing after all these months of work.
I am too. Like that, what the Colts are going to do at 14 just seems to get more and more complicated every single day. If you were the Colts and Shedeur Sanders was available at 14, would you take him?
No. I think we can put aside what we think of him as just an overall prospect and how he would fit there. I think dropping him into the overall situation with the Colts would probably be the worst thing for both him and the Colts. You be taking him into a system that has a GM and a coach who are presumably on the hot seat and are trying to save their jobs. You have your incumbent, formerly hired draft pick in Anthony Richardson. You have a veteran that you paid a lot of money to come in Daniel Jones. And then you would go and spend a first-round pick on Shedeur Sanders. I think that creates one of the messiest quarterback rooms in all of football. There is a good chance that the people that take him there at 14 are no longer there a year from now, and now he has to relearn a whole new playbook and is part of a regime that did not pick him. And I think there's just other needs for a team like the Colts at 14 before you even think of another quarterback, let alone a player like of Sanders' caliber, who I don't even know if he's worth a first-round pick at that point.
Okay, totally fair. I would take him just because the Anthony Richardson thing doesn't look great. The Daniel Jones thing doesn't look great. And I'm a big believer in when it comes to quarterbacks, you just throw as many darts at the board as possible and hope that one eventually hits.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with your overall line of thinking for just teams in general. And I do think if the Colts had ended up kind of restarting this coaching staff and the front office and then wanted to go Sanders, even with Richardson, Daniel Jones on the roster, I could get more behind it, even if I don't love the player. The thing that just scares me is a potential turnover in a front office, and then you get stuck with a quarterback who is a good prospect but not a great one and is going through a ton of turmoil early in his career. I just don't think that's good for a development plan.
That's totally fair. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. He's also got a YouTube channel as well called K-Potts NFL. You can check that out. So I was going over mock drafts because at this point in like the drafting timeline, that's really all that anyone can do to get ready for it. I've seen a lot of Carson. I'm going to butcher his last name. Schwesinger to the Colts in the second round. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm a big fan of Schwesinger. He is my linebacker 2 in this class. I have a mid to early second round grade on him. A little background from UCLA. He originally was a walk-on at UCLA, was a reserve special teams player for most of his first couple of years. Eventually got the starting job this year in 2024. Broke out in a big way. First team All-American. He led all of linebackers in solo tackles. He is extremely athletic. He has the downhill instincts to move side to side, really good pursuit speed. He is a kryptonite for team screen games. Even though he's a little bit smaller, I love his tenacity, his ability to take on blockers. He does lack some play strength. He checked in really well at the combine, over 240 pounds, which was a shocker to me. I still think he needs to translate that better into overall play strength, but he has the requisite instinct and coverage ability and athleticism to live in this NFL as we know it in the modern day. And I think for the teams that miss out on Campbell in the first round, he is going to be a big target for a lot of people in the second and may even sneak into the back half of that first round.
Okay. So I was looking into him last night and I read that he was 6'3", 242. And then I saw photos. I was like, there's absolutely no way this guy's 242 pounds, especially when you factor in that I think Roquan Smith is like 6'2", 230, somewhere in there. And it's just like, there's no way this guy's bigger than Roquan Smith. And that's kind of my concern. Like the size doesn't really seem to be there. I've read that his arms are a little short. Is that true? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look 242, which is why I was shocked that he measured in that at the combine. I believe he was listed like high 220s at UCLA. I thought he could get into the 230s at the combine. So 240s are shocker. You mentioned the arms, sub 32-inch arms isn't great. But I do think even though he is a smaller guy, I don't fully believe the 242 weight. He is so athletic and he fights through blocks so well for his size that even if it's a negative in his game, I don't think it's going to be something that's debilitating for him. He's also not a true middle linebacker. He's a weak side linebacker, so it's just going to be a little bit more playing in space. I also do think there's some optimism for a player who is presumably put on 15 pounds. He didn't do all his testing at 242, but he still jumped 40 inches in the vertical, so it doesn't seem like it took away that athleticism. I think there's optimism for a guy who's basically only been a one-year starter, that him being able to add that weight can translate into strength over time. You can't obviously make your arms longer, but I do think there is a growth path for him to continue getting stronger and building out that frame with that weight.
Joined by Kevin Potts talking about Carson Schwesinger out of UCLA, a linebacker that has been mocked to the Colts a few times now with that second-round pick. Who's your NFL comp for him?
Oh, NFL comp. I don't have a great one just because there's just not a lot of linebackers coming in are very small now. So a lot of these college guys don't comp super well to the NFL just because you have to get bigger and stronger. I don't think he has the same type of nastiness, but I do think there is a little bit of Dre Greenlaw in the way he plays, in the sideline to sideline speed and the downhill instincts. And I've been on the show before and talked a lot of high praise about Greenlaw. So this is a pretty lofty comp, but I do think his ability to chase sideline to sideline and his ability to process and blow up those underneath passes, those screens, those little pitches to the side have some Greenlaw in his game.
Okay, I'm on board now. I was talking about earlier. It's like I'm not sure. The arms are short. He looks really small. I get that he's fast and that he doesn't really seem to miss tackles, but at the same time, it's like, what if you can't get off blocks? Does any of that other stuff matter? But then you said Dre Greenlaw, and I love Dre Greenlaw. And yeah, so it's like I'm in now. Let's go.
And if you remember Greenlaw coming out of college, he was a safety who transitioned to linebacker, and he was a player who had to add on more weight because he was an in-space athletic guy. And as he added more weight and got better at taking on blocks, he didn't become amazing at it because he was still not the biggest player, but he got to the point where he was able to make it a neutral in his game so the rest of his strength should shine. I do think there is a path for Schwesinger to do the exact same thing.
Was he really listed as a safety? Because I remember when he was playing at Arkansas, he definitely played linebacker.
Yeah, he was when he came out, they listed him as a safety to linebacker convert. I believe he switched to linebacker later in his career in college, so he might have been technically that when he came out. But even most college linebackers are bastardized safeties in itself because college teams just don't ask these guys to do much other than run and chase. So he was technically a convert over the course of his college career, even if he might have been listed as a linebacker and he was drafted.
Okay, that makes sense. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. There's a player that you have a question about. Go read his Substack because he has player profiles on literally everybody. It is one of the most impressive things that I've really seen. I do want to continue to talk about the quarterbacks, and I feel dumb because this happens every year, and for some reason, I thought that it wouldn't happen this year. Jalen Milroe got invited to the NFL draft, which means that like this guy could legitimately be a first-round pick. Does that surprise you?
No, because like you said, I feel like this happens every year where we do this with the quarterbacks, and we realize that this class maybe isn't that great, and then April rolls around, and now we're talking about 5 guys going in the first round that are all getting invited. I do think with the overall invitation to the combine, we do jump the gun a little bit on quarterbacks. They keep saying every year that they don't want to invite guys who are going to end up in the green room. And then Will Levis and Malik Willis have both ended up in the green room after round 1. So I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee that Milroe will go in the first round, but I do think it's a pretty good sign that he's probably not getting out of the top 50 and getting through that Cleveland, New York, New Orleans Saints gauntlet in the 40s there.
Where does he make the most sense?
It's tough to really find a spot because he's basically just a product. The spots that you would like him to go are teams with established quarterbacks that are maybe older, like the Rams, where he can sit behind Stafford. But if I had to pick one of the bad teams, I think I would say the Saints, just because I think his development, his optimal development, probably shows a lot of similarities to what Jalen Hurts went through. And I think with Kellen Moore in New Orleans, him having worked even for a short period of time with Jalen Hurts, he's probably the best coach to create an offense that can give Milrose some early success.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm intrigued to kind of see where he ends up because he's just, I think it was a couple weeks ago I asked you who was going to play tight end first, Milroe or Richardson. You were like Richardson because Milroe is going to play running back, and he's just so electric and. There's a ton of physical gifts there. I'm just intrigued to see who can kind of help him learn how to play quarterback. What do you think the Steelers are going to wind up doing? They've got the 21st pick. Aaron Rodgers is still like, I don't know if I want to play. What do you think that they wind up doing with that first round pick?
Currently, I feel like it's going to be a quarterback. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Well, he's currently not on the roster. And even if you add him, this is a 40-year-old quarterback who has not looked like himself, and really you can't depend on him long term. So I think they need another option in the room. For me, Jackson Dart kind of feels like the pick, talking about another quarterback who I don't think is worthy of first round conversation getting bumped up, because similar to Milroe, I do think he needs a redshirt year. He has some tools. If you bring him in at 21, you let him sit for a year, have Rodgers play this year, then you can let him develop those skills. I think the Arthur Smith offense would actually be pretty good for him because it's pretty heavy in play action. And I think the Steelers team, the last time they were this invested in quarterback class, talking about going to pro days, doing 30 visits, was that Kenny Pickett draft. And they're picking in about the same range for kind of a similar prospect.
Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack, talking about the NFL Draft. So the Colts hosted Josh Simmons last week, the big offensive tackle out of Ohio State. I think, tell me if this makes sense or not. Is there a world where the Steelers trade up to 14 to grab, whatever quarterback they want? Like, let's say, Schurter falls past 9, Colts trade back to 21. Would that be a good spot to draft a Josh Simmons or a Booker, the offensive guard out of Alabama?
Yeah, and I think most teams picking in the teens are in good trade back spots, because I think the difference in a prospect from about 11 or 12 to 35 really doesn't change that much. So if you're a team like the Colts and you're on the clock and you really liked Warren and Loveland and they're gone, I think trying to move back a few spots for a team looking to come up for a quarterback is a good one. Josh Simmons specifically, I would love it. He is my 11th ranked player in this class. I think he belongs in the top 10 with the other two tackles. He just has coming off a pretty significant knee injury, which is what is going to bring down his stock. With Booker, I wouldn't love him even in a trade back inside the top 20, but I do think if you pick up the extra value from that move back, it makes it taking a less valuable position that early a little bit easier to swallow. And I do think trying to move back from that spot, if you don't like what's on the board, is probably a good idea for Indy.
How many guys in this draft do you think can be legitimate stars in the NFL?
I think there's a good amount of players that can be legitimate stars. I don't feel good about putting my flag on a lot of these guys. I think I have about 10 to 15 guys with the first, second round grade with the boom bust prospect tag. And if they all hit at the top, Michael Williams out of Georgia, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, Luther Burden III out of Missouri at wide receiver, all these players are incredibly talented, really good traits. They've shown the ability to win, but they all have basically one major flaw. And it's, I say this every year, it really depends on landing spot, which sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's really important, I think, for this year's class, because outside of the top 5 or 6 guys, it's hard to put your flag in any one of these guys because they all have one major flaw that makes it difficult to feel overly confident in what their long-term outlook is.
That makes sense. What is who's the guy that's going to be drafted outside of the first round that NFL teams are going to look back at and be like, why didn't we take that guy with the, 19th pick or whatever it winds up being?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, I'm going to do another safety because I always love safeties. Kevin Winston Jr. Out of Penn State. And I don't know if it's going to be the one where we're like, he should have been a top 20 pick, but I definitely think he's going to be a player that we, at the end of the day, would look back and say, why was he not a first rounder? And why was he not safety 2 off the board? Safety out of Penn State, for the people that don't know, he had an excellent 2023 season. He tore his ACL really early into this year, so he basically missed the entirety of the year. But he's a big athletic player. He's one of those Penn State athletic freaks. Even after tearing his ACL, he's still running in the mid 4.4s in the 40. He's an excellent tackler. I think he can play 3 different spots on the back end. He looks like he's probably going to be a second round, maybe third round player because of that injury. But I think he has a legit shot to be the first or second best safety in this class. And one of those guys we look back and be like, did we really let a guy that good fall just because of one injury? An injury that in today's day and age heals pretty well. It's not like ACLs derail careers, especially at this age anymore. And I think people are going to regret skipping on him and letting him fall.
Joined by Kevin Potts of the NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, talking about the NFL Draft. I just want to see if I remember this correctly. So your QB1, like everyone else, is Cam Ward, and then your QB2 is Tyler Shadow or whatever his name is out of Louisville, right?
No, I still have Sanders at 2.
Okay. So after, because I wanted to ask that just to make sure that I phrase this question right. Which quarterback after Ward and Shadur do you feel the best about becoming like a consistent year in and year out starter in the NFL?
It would be Tyler Shuck, who you mentioned. He is my QB4. But the other 2 guys in that tier 3 of quarterbacks for me is Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe, who we've talked about being more of projects. Shuck is an older player who struggled with injuries. I don't think he has the ceiling to be an elite quarterback, but the kid can really spin it. He is a really good drop back passer. When he's older, he's got a lot of experience. I think he's accurate to all 3 levels. I don't know if he has the juice as a mover and the processing speed to be one of those top guys, but my comp ended up being a little more athletic Davis Mills, who ended up starting for a little bit for Houston. I know it's not the sexiest comp, but we're talking about third rounders here. He started a little bit for Houston before eventually getting upgraded on with CJ Stroud. I think he's a little bit better than that, but I think he's that dude who's a spot starter, starts 3 or 4 years, and then is like an elite backup as probably his middle outcome.
How does he's 25. How does his age impact his draft stock?
It impacts it less this year than probably it ever has, partially because of how good these older quarterbacks looked last year and the amount of success that they have shown early on, specifically at the quarterback position, because there's less physical toll and the mental acumen is such a big part of the game. Being that experience is actually a good thing. It's not like a defensive tackle or a running back where we're worried about the workload and the amount of body blows. Being a little bit older for a quarterback is not necessarily a bad thing because of the experience. Granted, you generally like younger players in general because they're earlier on the growth curve. It's easier to project them getting better and better over time as they grow into their physical skill set. Chuck is probably capped out physically, but mentally he's farther ahead than a lot of the other guys that have in that range in the draft, which is why I'm more confident in him being ready to go from day one and having a successful career.
Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Who is the player that you think has like the widest range of where he could be picked?
Right now, it feels like it's Will Johnson, who is a player that I have been pounding the drum on for, it feels like the better part of a year. He's my 5th overall player in this class, but he is basically opted out of doing all the testing. I think he is a fantastic player, but he missed a lot of this past year with an injury. A lot of people have questions about his long speed. He opted out of running the 40, so those questions didn't really get answered. I think he could go as high as 6 to the Raiders because they need a legit number one corner, and I think he's personally a lockdown. But there's plenty of people out there that I respect and their opinions, and it seems like the league is pretty aligned with that don't trust the ability to tackle, the injury history, the overall long seasons he skipped out on the testing, and I think he could go at the back end of the first round. So maybe it's not the biggest range, but we're talking about like a top tier player having a range that is the entire first round is pretty insane.
What about McMillan? Because that's who I thought you were going to say. Because I've seen him mocked to like the Panthers, but I've all with the 8th pick, but I've also seen him down in like the 20s.
I think that his range has definitely increased from where we were in the summer, where he seemed like he was a locked in top 10 pick. But I still don't think he gets outside of the teens. I still think he's the number one non-Travis Hunter receiver in this class. And maybe he's not going 4 to the Patriots or 8 to the Panthers, but I still think there's a bevy of options, including the Cowboys at 12. You have like the Chargers and the Steelers and Denver at the early 20s. Seattle at 18, Arizona and Atlanta could both use more playmakers. I think there's just too many options inside the teens for him to drop that far, even if he's not a perfect prospect.
Atlanta needs more playmakers. They spend all their first round picks on offensive playmakers. That's what it seems like.
And they're still picking 15th because their team's not that good.
Yeah, they need a pass rusher. That's what they need. Jeez, they
need a lot of things.
They do. I am curious. I think for me, once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, the most interesting pick, like obviously the Colts are. I'm obviously very tuned into what they're going to do. I have no idea what the Patriots are going to do at 4. What do you think they're going to use that 4th pick on?
Right now, it feels like it's boiled down to 2 options. If Carter or Hunter can get to 4 because the Giants ownership says, hey, you're taking Shooter Sanders at 3, I think they will run in the card for either of those 2 players. If not, it feels like Will Campbell. Obviously, everyone's talked about how bad this Patriots offensive line is. They did some work in the offseason. They have not addressed left tackle at all. There are questions about if Campbell is a left tackle, but the consensus from the league and from what people are plugged in are saying seems to be that Campbell is still viewed as a left tackle in the league. His production, his movement ability are all off the charts. And for a New England team that just really needs some security on Drake May's blind spot, I think they're going to take Campbell if the top 2 guys are off the board.
Last question for you, Kevin, and I'll let you go. What about you? Like which team drafting are you most intrigued to see who they take in that first round?
For me, it's probably Miami at 13 because this is a team that I think really went all in the past couple of years with paying veteran players to make this team good. And now they're sitting here at 13. We have seen Jalen Ramsey now. It seems like he might be on the trade block. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill every offseason. We don't know what his future is on this team. They've had a retirement at left tackle. This offensive line is not good. It was a big reason for their struggles last year. They need multiple additions there. And 13 is 1 pick. And you could argue they need a new wide receiver, need a new corner, and need a new left tackle. 3 pretty important positions. So I'm very curious to see whether they trade 2 of those incumbent players that are aging stars, and then how do they replace them if they do, and what they do at that pick.
Should they just tear it down? Like that's like I feel like all these teams that draft, maybe not all of them. This is just kind of, I think, more of a trend that I've seen. But the teams that draft like 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, and 18 even, it's like they're all in that 8 and 9, 9 and 8 range. And it's like, you know what? If you just sucked for 1 year, then you could maybe draft the one thing that you really need to elevate. But when you look at like the Colts even and the Dolphins, like part of me just thinks that those teams should just blow it up, start over, and just kind of hit that reset button. What do you kind of think about these teams that are like 8 and 9 and 9 and 8 and how they should go about their futures?
Yeah, and I agree that the Dolphins should blow it up. The other team that I almost answered your original question for also should blow it up and never do is the New Orleans Saints at 9.
Yeah.
And I think any of these teams in the top 20 that don't have a quarterback, you should probably be blowing up. So the teams that would say don't do it, San Francisco with Purdy and Shanahan, I'd still keep riding that out. I think Dallas, I think Dak's good enough that I'm going to keep riding it out. And then Cincy, obviously with Joe Burrow, I'm going to keep riding it out. But if you're looking at teams like Seattle, Indy, Miami, New Orleans, even the Jets a little bit, they're high enough that they can it's probably another year if you keep going. But all these teams that just don't really have an answer at the most important position or don't have the genius play caller or head coach, you probably should just be tearing it down to the sets, especially teams like Miami and New Orleans who have all these aging contracts that have been pushed way back into future years. It's going to be a multi-year rebuild. Just get going now.
That makes sense. Last thing for real this time. How much money are the 49ers going to pay Brock Purdy, and how much are you comfortable with them paying him?
I think it's probably going to be just a little over 55. I'm hoping for under 60. I've gotten to the point where I've accepted they're going to pay 55 to 60 because you have to. We've talked about this before with Tua and Goff. There's just no other options. So I've accepted they're going to pay him average year that he's not worth it. It's going to look bad for a couple of years. How do you work around it is the big question. Until his money gets knocked down by all these other superstars resetting their contracts, how are you going to work around to build this team? And for a team that has 11 draft picks, this is a pretty big year to replenish that talent while you pay the quarterback.
Is this a good draft to have 11 picks in?
I think so. This has gotten the tag of a bad draft because of, one, the quarterback class isn't very good. And then, like I talked about earlier, there's just not a lot of stars at the top. But I think the middle part of this class is fantastic. I think this is a big meat and potatoes class. You can get a lot of good players. I only have 14 pure first-round grades, but from 15 to 82, those guys are all second-round grades. So you're taking a lot of second-round players in the first round, but if you have a lot of day 2 picks, which the 49ers have 3 of, I think you're getting legit starting caliber players in the second and third round in this year's class. So it's a good way to build out the depth of the roster, even if you're not probably dropping stars onto your team.
Okay, that makes sense. Kevin, thanks for your time, man. As always, I'll probably shoot you a text at some point next week and try to get you on because, dude, we're eight days away from all your work starting to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
It is. Thanks, man. See ya.
Yeah.
That is Kevin Potts. You can check him out on Twitter at KPOTS06. Make sure you check out his Substack. Because like I said, if you have a question about any player, he has a draft profile on them. And they are very well thought out, very well organized, like whatever you want to know. Like if you just want to know one thing about a guy, you can pull it up. You're going to find it in like less than 15 seconds. He does an excellent job. And Coach DeVries is cooking in the portal. Lamar Wilkerson to IU. My thoughts on that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Big thanks to Kevin Potts for sticking around in that last segment talking NFL draft with me. We are 8 days away from figuring out how Chris Ballard will disappoint us once again. Thanks for tuning in to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. However you're tuning in, I know that just probably made you smile. There's just so much hope for the Indianapolis Colts. Just oozes out of me. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. You can also listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. You can also watch the show on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. And if you want even more from me, you can go and check out my YouTube channel called My Take Is. Now, my take is that Lamar Wilkerson is a very good shooter of the basketball, and I'm glad that he's coming to IU. Okay, the Sam Houston State transfer is officially a Hoosier. Apparently, Coach DeVries flew out last minute to talk to him again pretty late in the process, and that ended up being the thing that got Lamar Wilkerson to commit to IU. We had Eric Cross on the show earlier. He coached Lamar way back in high school before he was good enough to go play at IU, and he spoke very highly of Lamar. A unselfish kid, willing to play off the ball. He can really shoot it, wants to play defense, and has really kind of worked his way into being a really good player, a guy who started out at the JUCO level, ended up at a mid-major D1 in Sam Houston State, and now is playing for Indiana, getting away those ugly candy strikes, because they are ugly. They are. I'm sorry. They just are. And, he's worked himself into becoming a really good shooter, shot 45% from three last year. And when it comes to this Indiana transfer portal recruiting class, are you noticing a trend? Are you noticing a trend? Indiana is going to be all about shooting now, and I'm just so excited about it, because shooting is, you could argue, the most important skill in the world of basketball now. You have to be able to shoot the ball. When you look at the best teams in college basketball, they all shoot the crap out of it. When you look at the best teams in the NBA, they all shoot the crap out of it. And that is something that Indiana never had under Coach Woodson. They didn't. They just didn't have enough shooting. The 1 year that they had, a decent amount of shooting, mainly Miller Kopp shooting 44% from three, was the year that, they were a 5 seed and they made the NCAA tournament and all that stuff. They ended up losing to Miami, but that was their best year, was the year that they had a little bit of shooting. And they're going to have a lot of bit of shooting based off of all these guys that Coach DeVries has brought in so far. The spacing that needs to be there is going to be there, and it's going to be great. Gritty chiming in over on the YouTube chat. Once again, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, saying, Jonathan, what do you think of the Pacer playoff round not being on regular TV, not one game? I don't really know what you mean by that. I'm going to assume that you mean that it's not on ABC or NBC or CBS or anything like that. I believe a lot of their games are going to be on TNT. I'm sure some of them are going to wind up on NBA TV as well. And look, let me look here. Yeah, ESPN is what it'll be on Saturday, and then NBA TV. That is not surprising. And then April 25th, ESPNU or NBA TV. Oh, geez. All right. So, and then the game 4 will be on TNT. So this isn't surprising. There are 8 other series going on. And this is just a very simple reality. When you look this is just a small market. That's just how it is. There's no other way to say it. They're not putting the New York Knicks on NBA TV. It is not happening. Sorry, they're not. They're putting them on ESPN or TNT where everyone can see them. Same goes for the Lakers. Houston's that's the 4th largest market in the country. They're not sticking them and Steph Curry on NBA TV. They're not putting Who else? They're not putting the Lakers on NBA TV. It's not happening. Okay, it's not. They're going to put the smaller market teams, which are the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. That's the simple reality of it. Like, they're not putting the Boston Celtics on NBA TV. They're not going to do that. And so this is, the downside of just the way that the NBA TV contracts work. With that being said, that shouldn't be a problem next year between the ESPN contract and the Amazon Prime contract and the NBC contract. You should be able to find a Pacer game not on NBA TV. Okay? That is the hope. So, that's just the sad reality of rooting for a small market team in the NBA or really any other sport. It's just, like I said, it's the very sad reality of it. And when we come back here in about 4 minutes, we're gonna we're gonna continue to talk about the reality of Chris Ballard. Now, he's probably going to fail us. There's a new, not new, I guess. There's this linebacker who keeps being mocked to the Colts in the second round. His name is Carson Schwesinger, and he's a linebacker out of UCLA. We'll see whether or not he winds up being a dude or not, and whether or not the Colts end up drafting him. Gritty chiming in again saying, do the Pacers not being on any national broadcast, does that not help the NBA product if non-avid fans can't watch? I get what you're saying, but it's not like all of those games for the playoffs period are going to be on, NBA TV. Like, they're going to put LeBron and Curry and Jason Tatum and the biggest stars of the league. Anthony Edwards is included in that. Like, trust me, the casuals will have plenty of basketball to watch. It just sadly won't be the Pacers until the second round when they play, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, if the Pacers don't want to be on NBA TV, don't be a 4 seed playing against the Bucks. Be a 1 or 2 seed, because they're not going to put their best teams on NBA TV either. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Carson Schwesinger, what you need to know about this linebacker that keeps being mocked to the Colts.
It's part sports.
We have football on the brain.
Part pop culture.
Dennis Leary. True or false? You refuse to wear a glove with Mickey Mantle's signature on it for the movie The Sandlot.
The Red Sox blood, the Bruins blood, they run deep.
And in the best celebrity interviews.
Robert De Niro here on The Rich Eisen Show. How are you, sir?
Just got over a 24-hour virus.
The antidote is to appear on The Rich Eisen Show.
There you go. I would have just done it earlier.
And you've got The Rich Eisen Show podcast.
There is a medicinal quality to appearing on this program.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice day. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over and subscribe, maybe you're listening on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you download your apps. You can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show there. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. And if you want even more from me, feel free to head over to YouTube, search for My Take Is, and you can check out my other little YouTube channel that we got going on over there. Now, Carson Schwesinger has been mocked to the Indianapolis Colts quite a bit. Who is he? He is a linebacker at UCLA, been mocked to the Colts in the second round quite a bit. And I got to be honest, I don't see it. The dude's small. He's listed at 6'3", 242. There's no way that guy's 242 pounds. He looks like a safety trying to play linebacker. And I'm just not convinced that he's going to work out. Now, if he does, and if the Colts even take him, he would be a good fit alongside Zaire Franklin. He's this instinctive player who plays downhill quite a bit. He's pretty quick, especially laterally, right? So, that helps him to, identify plays and chase the ball. And he seems to kind of decipher plays quickly. And he's quick enough to kind of slide through some blocks. Okay, he's a really good tackler, led all of college football in solo tackles last year. His missed tackle percentage was only at 7.6%. That's per PFF. He's got a really high motor, just kind of keeps going. Makes sense because he is a former walk-on. But the reason why he is intriguing for the Colts is the coverage ability. He looks comfortable dropping back into space. He's athletic enough to actually cover. Okay, he can flip his hips. He's got solid speed. He's not, top end linebacker speed, but he can definitely run. So he can turn his hips. He can run with a tight end or even, maybe a slower receiver in the NFL. So there is some positives to Carson Schwesinger if the Colts decide to draft him. Okay, because Zaire Franklin, not good in coverage. And they need a linebacker who can cover, and Schwesinger seems like he can be that. Okay. So he's quick. He doesn't miss tackles. Those are the reasons why he's potentially going to be a second round pick. There's a reason why Kevin Potts, who came on the show 45 minutes ago, said that he had him as his linebacker too. Okay. So I do have some concerns though. He hasn't played a ton. I understand that he was productive for one season on a bad team. But that's just concerning because we live in this era of college football where you can find guys that have been productive for, 4 years or even 5 years. I mean, and then you got this guy, one season as a walk-on on a bad team, and he was good. That makes me a little wary. He was, a special teamer for the first 3 years that he was playing at UCLA. And I just feel like if he was some amazing talent, it's not like UCLA is linebacker U and they're just churning out NFL linebackers every year. They're not doing that. And Schwesinger couldn't find the field. He couldn't get on the field before this year. And obviously he made the most of it, being a first team All-American and first team all Big Ten. But I wish he'd played a little more. I guess that's really kind of my concern. And the other thing that I don't like about him is he's small. He's small. And I just think that you got to have some size to you to play linebacker in the NFL. And I understand that they're getting smaller because teams are spreading you out more and they're asking their linebackers to run more and these important things like that. But at the same time, he's listed in the high 20s. He's like 220 something when he played at UCLA. And then you compare that to Roquan Smith, who's in the 230s, Patrick Queen's 230. When you look at the best linebackers in the NFL, they've got size on them. And this kid, Carson Schwesinger, he doesn't have that. He doesn't. So we'll see. He's slight. His arms are short. I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to get off blocks at the NFL level. And I get that he's got a high motor in those things, but it's like, I'm going to make tackles at the NFL level because I try hard. I didn't work. Those other guys are trying hard too. So I'm a little concerned if the Colts decide to take him. But that being said, if it does work out, then he's going to be a really good compliment alongside Zaire Franklin as a guy who can drop back and really cover. But it's got to work out in order for that to happen. We've got basketball going tonight, Heat Bulls. I'm so excited about this game. Kings Mavs, probably not going to watch any of it. Nico Harrison has made me a little too upset for that. Just some of the things he said yesterday at his press conference where he did not allow any phones or recording devices are absolutely insane. But, it's fine. Anyway, Heat Bulls, though, is going to be fun because the Heat, they're going to be well coached. They're going to play hard. The Bulls are really surging. They've been the 10th best team in the NBA after the All-Star break. It's amazing. They got rid of Zach LaVine, their leading scorer, and they became really good. And, it's just, I think that's just a pretty prime example of just because you're a really talented player, that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going, that you're a winning player. Zach LaVine is, he's averaged, 21 points per game for his career. He's averaging 23 points per game this year, shooting 44% from three. Like I said, he's having an excellent season. But he just wasn't a winning player. He didn't defend. He didn't move the ball very well. There's problems with that. And there's problems. And, you're going to watch him play tonight for the Kings, and you're probably going to see him. The lack of attention to detail defensively, the lack of a willingness to move the basketball. You can't have that if you want to win games. And the Bulls got rid of that, and they started winning. Josh Giddey, he's got the ball more. Now he looks like a real dude. Colby White, his numbers got better after Zach LaVine has left. Montes Bazelis playing more, playing better because he actually gets to touch the basketball. So they're playing much better. I think they win. They're a 1-point favorite. I don't feel great about it because the Miami Heat are going to be well prepared and ready to go. They got rid of Jimmy Butler. They've been bad since. The issue isn't defense. They are a good defensive team, one of the top 10 defenses in the NBA. The issue is offense. When Andrew Wiggins and Tyler Hero are your two best offensive players, they just don't have enough. They don't have a ton of shooting either. Bam Adebayo continues to be this elite defender, but just leaves something to be desired on the offensive side of the ball. And look, the numbers speak for themselves. Okay, they're 19th after the All-Star break in offensive rating. They just don't score the ball enough, and it's really tough to win games when you don't score. So there's that. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I greatly appreciate it. We're getting closer and closer to Pacers basketball. The hope is to get Tony East on tomorrow to talk about that Bucks and Pacers series. I've also got a writer from the Milwaukee Sentinel named Jim. I'm going to butcher his last name. Owazowski. Let's go with that. He's going to join. He came on last year when the Bucks played the Pacers. He does a really good job covering them. He's going to join tomorrow at 10:20. The hope is to get Tony East on at some point there as well to talk about Bucks and Pacers. Thanks again for taking the time out of your day to listen. The Dan Dockett Show loaded. Kurt Miller at 1, and then Sylvie from Chicago. He's going to be on at 2 o'clock. So should be a great show. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to My Take Is as well. And I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.